Welcome back, guys. It's grand finals here of the World Champion of Champions tournament. We've had our 8 world champions battle it out in some phenomenal pool stages. We had 4 players break out of those pool stages and then fight out in their semi-finals, and we are now here for that grand finals. We're going to find out who our first ever World Champion of Champions is. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so am I, and more excited that my pick for the tournament is still in the finals, and not yours, Lou. Well, not that we're being competitive at all in this highly competitive tournament, but Shoma's my boy. Hopefully he's going to take it home for us. As you say, Lou, we've seen them go through the group stages. We've seen them go through the first round of knockout to get to this final tournament. We haven't seen both of the games. I caught a little bit at the end of the game. Shoma just won, and it would look like a really tight set. But Shoma managing to take it 2-0. We saw Sejun versus Wolfie on this stream just a moment ago, playing a really, really good set, but a fairly one-sided set. Sejun managing to take it 2-0 as well. So really showing off the champion of champions now. Shoma, I don't think, has been defeated so far in this tournament. I think he went 3-0 in the group stages. Sejun, I think, went 2-1. Might have got that wrong, guys, so correct me if not. But either way, they've made it to the finals, and here they are.
Yeah, and I really hope all of you guys at home, you followed whichever stream you've wanted to. We've been able to showcase every single game at some point or other, and hopefully you've been able to watch your favorites in whatever language it is that you speak natively. That's been one of the amazing things about this tournament. We've been able to showcase so much Pokemon action and also make it accessible for everyone around the world. It's a world championship battle in style. You know, you've got world champions here. So it's just amazing that everyone's been able to follow it and now get through to this grand final. And one thing I'm excited to see is Shoma's team, because that's not something we've been able to show on this particular stream of Pokemon today. But Shoma is running a core that I personally love. He's got that rain core, Ben.
He has indeed. He's got the, well, it's not quite ducks, is it? It's not quite like
duck.
He's got half a duck and something with a beak. So maybe that counts. But yeah, as you say, Lou, running that rain core. Here we are up on your screen right now. Togekiss, Dragapult, and that infamous combination of Pelipper and Ludicolo that we've seen. But also running a little bit of a slower team with a Bronzong and a Rhyperior. Rhyperior, not something we've seen so far in this tournament other than on Shoma's games. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what that's going to bring to this game.
Exactly, and Bronzong there, a little blast from the past as well, a Pokemon that in previous formats was really popular. Very nice sort of Trick Room setter there as well, particularly if it's paired up with something like Hypnosis, can do a lot of sleepy times for a lot of these opposing Pokemon. Rhyperior, though, again, a Pokemon that we've talked about previously as one that likes to be Dynamaxed quite a lot, particularly if you slap on a weakness policy. You can have that extra bulk from being Dynamaxed. You can take, a lot of people sometimes even activate that weakness policy with quite a low damaging move, and then you get those boosts as well. And particularly if you're Dynamax, you're bulky, your weakness policy boosted, you're going to be so powerful. And that's something that Sejun does have to make sure that he doesn't accidentally activate, and secondly knows how to get down.
Yeah, and something else with Rhyperior that's really good for it. In previous formats, we've seen it put a lot of support in for its team with a Lightning Rod ability, drawing away those electric attacks from its opponents. But there has been a little bit of a rise in use of Solid Rock on Rhyperior in combination with that HP boost that you get from Dynamaxing your Pokemon, an extra bit of a little extra bit of bulk that really just adds everything together, means that you can do things like self-activate and still take a subsequent attack. Also activate that weakness policy exactly as you were saying, Lou, do some really big damage. But good to see, though, as well, that Bronzong could be carrying something like Levitate. So if Bronzong was carrying something like Body Press, a new move that we've seen in this format, which works based on your defense stat and not your attack stat, something that Bronzong is really well known for, maybe Bronzong can self-activate with something like Body Press instead of, something like Pelipper or Ludicolo self-activating and probably doing a little bit more damage than Shoma would like.
Exactly. I mean, talking about that Pelipper and Ludicolo as well, that's where a lot of speed comes into things here for Shoma. We saw in the semi-final game Sejun had against Wolf, one of the things that really put Wolf on the back foot was the speed advantage that Sejun was able to gain by Tailwind on that Whimsicott. Now, looking at Shoma's team, he doesn't have a Whimsicott of his own. He doesn't have that ability to get Tailwind up instantly, but Tailwind is a move that we sometimes see on that Pelipper. That could be a way to boost it up. Also, in the rain, that Ludicolo speed is going to be doubled. So you're going to have that speed advantage there as well. Or alternatively, if you really want to flip the table, you could go for a Trick Room on that Bronzong and maybe go for a slower style, which means that if Sejun goes for that Tailwind, it's going to put him on the back foot.
Yeah, and something Ludicolo is known for is carrying that fake out. Togekiss, we know, carries Follow Me. So Shoma has both of those options there to set up Trick Room if he wants to with Bronzong, either to draw attacks away from it so that the Trick Room happens, maybe draw something like Taunt away from it. But also, he has the ability to fake out a threat, maybe a fire type that's coming out from his opponent in some way, shape, or form, and still be able to set that Trick Room up. Another really good thing that Shoma has as an advantage from this format is that Pelipper isn't needed to set up the rain anymore. Right, Ludicolo is a very popular Pokemon, known for being able to take attacks, got really quite good defensive typing, but also now if it Dynamaxes, has access to that Max Geyser, which sets up the rain. So, it can also self-activate its own rain and not have to rely so much on the rain coming out from Pelipper's Drizzle ability.
I like your thinking there, Benjamin. That really does work well there for the Ludicolo, just showing its versatility in this format again. And that's one of the things that I love so much about Dynamax is all the different moves have a different effect, and that can really turn the tables on a game. We've seen so many times having that terrain change on the field from something like the Max Starfall, so the Fairy type Dynamax move will bring the Misty Terrain onto the field, and that will stop any status moves from going off, which can be really detrimental to an opposing player. We've seen a lot of Thunder Waves going around, so that would be a way to stop it. And at the same time, changing that terrain to something like a grassy terrain, as you saw in Wolf Glick's game, in the first game of this tournament today. The grassy terrain, although it's great for him, also great for his opponent and stop that Milotic from being KO'd on the opposing side of the field. So having those extra little effects are something you have to consider when you're playing Pokemon in this generation.
It definitely is, absolutely. Something that we haven't touched on yet, this final tournament match of the World Championship Invitational, it will be a best of 5, not a best of 3. So we're going to have to see these players win 3 games out of 5 in order to become the winner, be crowned as the champion. And so we're going to actually be able to see them really adjust. The first game, we might see a lot of information grabbing, having them sort of feel out each other's teams and make sure they know exactly what they're up against. We saw Sejun with the knockoff coming out from his Passimian in the last match, so I'd really like to see quite a lot of that coming out in this first game for Sejun, just to get as much information as he can, because even if he loses a game, he still has sort of 2 loses that he can get before he loses the final. So a lot more time to process and think and try to get as much information as you can.
Yeah, it's a really interesting kind of concept going into a sort of best of 5 situation. Even at the World Championships or Pokemon VGC, the finals is still a best of 3 scenario. So applying your team to all of that, like you said, the extra knowledge, the extra time to think, and also bear in mind the time zones for some of these players. It's very early in the morning for these guys at the moment. So they're going to have to really kind of cradle whatever adrenaline and energy they've got left and put it into not only a best of 3 slog, but into a best of 5. So it's really going to take everything from these players. And that does, again, show the credibility that, they are world champions for a reason. They're dedicated and they can push their way through any game in any situation.
Well, and you come back to this time zone. Shoma and Sejun are in fairly similar time zones, a little bit earlier for Sejun than it is for Shoma right now. But actually, those are the 2 that are still left standing. 2 of the players that should be the tiredest. It really does say something about the character of them as people, as players, as champions, to be able to still keep going. And it's one of the reasons why these players did actually win their respective tournaments. They have the stamina to go right to the end to finish off the game and make sure they get the win.
Yes, and make sure you guys also have the stamina to make sure you stay around and support them through this best of 5. This is going to be crowning the champion of world champions, which is going to be phenomenal. Both the players here ready and throwing it out here for Sejun. You've got the Dracozolt and the Duraldon there on the field. And on Shoma's side, you've got Togekiss and Bronzong. So 2 classic Pokemon from generations past and 2 newbies from the new generation for Sejun.
Yeah, so I really like this lead of Dracozolt Duraludon from Sejun here. He's going to put massive pressure on Togekiss right early doors, potentially being able to get the one-hit knockout. And we've seen lots of Babiri Berry come out from Togekiss to resist the steel moves, something that Duraludon does very well. But if it's holding the Babiri Berry, it's not doing anything for those electric moves. So something like a Bolt Beat coming out here would be really good, and Sejun's got to make sure he accounts for that. Shoma's got to account for that, but he does also have that Rhyperior switch-in potential at the same time that he could set up Trick Room, maybe get himself into a really ideal turn 2 scenario.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't look too favorable there for the Dracozolt. Like you said, there were so many different options that Shoma could do to negate the damage output potential that Pokemon has. So instead, he switched it out and brought in his Togekiss. The Babiri Berry is activating, so a Steel-type move, looks like a Flash Cannon here, is firing off from the Duraldon into the opposing Togekiss, and the Berry really helping it out from taking a good chunk of damage. As Bronzong does what Bronzong does best, goes for the Trick Room, and for the first time on this particular stream, we're seeing the speed being reversed.
Yeah, so... Something that's really strong in this format is Trick Room. We've seen Whimsicott go for Tailwind so many times, but actually, hey, you don't need to match a Tailwind if you can just get an advantage in Trick Room. So I really like this play from Shoma, using the slower portions of his team. But also, I really want to touch on what Sejun's done here. He knows that the Trick Room's going up. He knows that he can't do anything about it. And what he's managed to do by bringing his Dracozolt out into Togekiss is stopping Shoma getting a free switch into Rhyperior if Shoma has bought his Rhyperior. And so what we're doing, what Sejun's managed to do here is to start wasting the turns of Trick Room for Shoma and forcing Shoma to have to work if he wants to get into that good position.
Yeah, and lots of shenanigans coming in from Shona. Brings in a very classic Trick Room Pokemon here with the Rhyperior. It's a Pokemon that likes to be in the slow environment. But Bronzong also protecting it with that Alley Switch, just swapping from the field. Able to take that Yawn and goes, I think it was this Berry activated there as well. Unfortunately, my screen has glitched out. Ben, did you catch it?
It looks like a Max Darkness coming out. Oh, no, sorry. Not a Max Darkness.
Just a dark type move.
There was a move there, and I sort of started looking at it, and it sort of glitched out for me as well there. So anyway, a move happened. We're in Trick Room. The Allo switches come out, not doing too much damage, and I did see a Berry getting eaten by that. I
think it was a Colbur Berry.
By that Bronzong, so maybe a dark move there coming out. But you know, we've got that Rhyperior onto the field now. It's safe. It hasn't been yawned as that Bronzong has, so Bronzong maybe going to be switching out, but that Rhyperior is free to launch a really powerful Earthquake or Rock Slide, whichever it decides to do, into the field, and it may be even choosing to Dynamax this turn and go for a Rockfall.
That's exactly what we're seeing. The heavy ball there in its Pokemon trainer's hand, giving away which Pokemon is being Dynamaxed. The Rhyperior is going to get large, it's going to get powerful, and this is where Sejun needs to be careful. He's still got his Togekiss on the field, so he can redirect those moves and try and help out the Duraldon on his side of the field to maybe deal out some good damage. Looks like one of his Pokemon's being Dynamaxed up. I'm not sure which one's going to be here from Sejun. There's advantages to both Pokemon here, but Duraldon will be able to deal out big damage using those sort of Dynamax moves as well, potentially going for something like a Max Quake into the opposing Rhyperior to be able to deal out that big damage.
Yeah, I'd expect to see a Max Steel Spike come out here from this Duraludon, but also a Max Rockfall to come out from the Rhyperior to just get rid of that Togekiss. And Togekiss does go for the Follow Me, redirecting any move. So if it did go for that Max Quake, going to be going into a Flying type Pokemon, but no, the Max Rockfall comes out and sets up that Sandstream.
Yeah, Togekiss shooting back into his Pokeball, such a powerful move, one of my favorite animations in this game. Max Steel Spike coming out from the Duraldon, that's going to go into, I believe that was the Togekiss that was targeted down, and Togekiss, having had its berry activated previously, is going to fall victim to that massive damaging move. It does, however, give both Shoma and Sejun the opportunity to switch in another Pokemon here. You've got to remember Trick Room is up. What kind of environment does Shoma want? He could potentially bring that Bronzong back in. And again, we've seen that it's got things like Ally Switch. Bronzong's often got a few tricks up its sleeve. So if you can bring it and utilize it in this Trick Room environment like he has done here, he's going to be able to make the most advantage of these turns. Of course, if you're Sejun, you're going to want to try and work around them. And Whimsicott is an interesting Pokemon to bring in here.
Yeah, so, it might be that we see some of the self-activation that we were talking about early in the game. Both of these players have managed to raise either their defense or set up Sandstorm, and Sandstorm boosts the special defense of Rock-type Pokemon. So the Rhyperior is going to be taking less damage from that Max Steel Spike, likely to be a special move. So we'll see if Max Quake comes out, raises its special defense yet again. Will probably do quite a lot of damage to that Duraludon as well. See if that Body Press or Gyro Ball would self-activate onto, or a potential weakness policy onto that Rhyperior.
Looks like just a little protect from that Whimsicott, though. Doesn't want to do anything at the moment. Will, of course, take some chip damage, though, from that opposing Sandstorm if it's still active at the end of the turn, potentially breaking a Focus Sash. Max Quake, however, coming out from that Rhyperior, going straight into it. Who was that one going into? Was it going into the Whimsicott?
It looked like it was the Whimsicott Protect.
Ooh, yeah, so going to break through it and make sure that Focus Sash is broken at this particular stage. Duraldon, though, however, going to go back for another Max Steel Spike, going to target into that opposing Rhyperior at this stage. Does about just over a quarter of damage there. Yeah,
it looks like it's going to be activating that weakness policy as well. So good turn there for Shoma. And really, I quite like the way that Shoma targeted there. Potentially, seeing that Sejun could go for a max guard on his Duraludon, and didn't want to fall foul of that, and just deciding that the special defense boost that he gets from Max Quake was more important than the potential damage. Max guard, unlike Protect, doesn't allow any damage or effects to bleed through.
Yeah.
And so, the targeting there was really good. And now that the weakness policy is activated, even though the Duraludon's at 2+ defense, the Rhyperior is at 2+ attack, and so it's going to be able to negate those boosts from the Max Steel Spikes and do some real damage to Sejun's Duraludon if he chooses to go down that route.
And you've seen as well this Rhyperior, now that it's boosted up by the weakness policy as well, in the Trick Room environment, it's going to be dealing out so much damage. Sejun needs to be able to play this quite conservatively. Interesting, I think, went for a Tailwind there on that occasion as Bronzong, I'm not sure what move that's gone on to. Unfortunately, my international language skills are not as good as I wish they would be at this particular stage. But Bronzong...
I'd imagine that was maybe a Body Press coming out there.
Okay, so Body Press coming out from Bronzong as Max Quake comes out once again from that Rhyperior. Despite the boosts, it's not able to pick up the KO thanks to the HP boost that the Duraldon has got from being Dynamaxed.
Yeah, so, Rhyperior has managed to get all of the boosts that it can now, both from the Sandstorm and from the Max Quake, and we can see how much of a difference that makes to Max Steel Spike. Similarly, Max Steel Spike stopping the Duraludon getting KO'd, so a real mix of a turn there. And it's not quite finishing. The Whimsicott setting up Tailwind, we are coming to the end of Trick Room now, so probably a little bit preemptive from Sejun as both Pokemon go back to their original forms and we see what's going to happen going forward.
Yeah, it could be some defensive plays here from Sejun, but that Rhyperior has clearly done so much damage to both these Pokemon. It is now slightly in the lower health, particularly as it has now been de-Dynamaxed. It's gone back to its original form. But as you've said there, it's got all of the defense boosts that it can get from those Max Quakes that it's done previously, so special defense is up nice and high. So it's going to be interesting to see what Sejun's got to be able to start battling through the remainder of that Rhyperior.
Yeah, it's just whether Rhyperior can just get off that last cheeky Earthquake, do something, just do that last bit of damage. Of course, Rhyperior is going to be worried about something like an Energy Ball coming out from that Whimsicott. So, by no means going to be safe, and that's exactly what we see. But into the wrong swamp.
Yeah, Rhyperior left unscathed in this particular turn. It looks like, I'm not sure what happened there with the Bronzong, but the Earthquake has gone. Oh, it was the Levitate coming out from Bronzong. There we go. I'm learning languages as I go. And as you said, that gets the Earthquake off as it wasn't targeted by either of Sejun's Pokemon, able to pick up the KO against the Duraldon as the Bronzong goes for the body press here against that opposing Whimsicott. So both of Shoma's Pokemon able to survive out the turn.
Yeah, this takes me back to the last regionals that we commentated, Lou, in Cologne. We were interviewing Hippolyte Bernard, and he said, you know, one of the great things about Ally Switch was that you can force your opponent, you can put your opponent in a position where they can misplay. It's exactly what we saw here. Sejun making the read that Shoma was going to go for that Ally Switch and actually decided not to in the end, and ultimately left that Rhyperior free to do a big Earthquake into both the Duraludon and the Whimsicott, and taking both of the Duraludon down and Whimsicott into a very low HP range.
Exactly, but of course now it's that awkward situation there for Shoma where both of his Pokemon are particularly slow against both of Sejun's here. The Whimsicott can do some damage with an Energy Ball, for example, and the Dracozolt, we all know, can go for some strong damage too, but most crucially, that Ally Switch has gone off from that Bronzong. Now, has Sejun fallen into the same trap? It looks like he has. You can see the desperation in his face there. He's gone into the Bronzong, and it looks as though it was the electric type move potentially going into the Rhyperior, who is able to once again go for an Earthquake. There's no stopping this amazing Pokemon.
Yeah, Rhyperior's just managed to have a little tantrum on the ground, and looks like everything's the stadium's still intact, but I'm not quite sure how. With all of those Earthquakes going off. So really well played there by Shoma, and commiserations to Sejun on the first game, but we do know this is only the start. We know that we've got so many games left to go. Shoma has won the first game.
Yes, he has.
You know, it's a little bit of a coin toss here. Sejun could win the coin tosses in the next game. Ally Switch is not the most consistent thing to use, and you can't know that it's gonna work. So got to play those mind games, and maybe Sejun getting a read on how Shoma likes to play the game. Gonna be well, we're gonna see how he's gonna react going forwards.
I mean, if you're Sejun, you've got to shake off those kind of sort of thoughts you get after Ally Switch mind games, particularly if you maybe don't call them the way that you wanted to. You know, that's game one, that's behind you now. You've still got 4 games left potentially to try and win this round. It's a best of 5, not even a best of 3. So there's every opportunity to keep fighting through. I think Shoma did play that phenomenally well, making sure his Rhyperior was always in a position, particularly once he had got its weakness policy activated. It had all of those boosts, that he did use them. He didn't just then sit too defensively on them, where potentially it would have allowed Sejun to maneuver around his Pokemon and then leave Rhyperior maybe vulnerable to the rest of Sejun's Pokemon. He actually managed to use those boosts accurately at the right time and start picking up some really clean KOs, particularly there at the end. Yeah,
he did, certainly. You know, this is where players of this caliber really come into their own, right? We pick up on the targeting of Shoma in that game, being able to just make sure he got the boosts that he needed, making the most use out of Dynamaxing. Yeah, okay, maybe he called the turn wrong, but what happens if he did, right? He gets a special defense boost. That Max Steel Spike from Duraludon doesn't do as much. So, hey, it's okay. And sometimes in Pokemon, you have to manage those bits of the process, the things that the game throws at you. You have to make sure you get the most out of every turn, and that's exactly what Shoma did this game.
Exactly. Sejun needs to make sure he's got a way to take down that Rhyperior. Of course, using the right direction from the Togekiss really helps out his opposing Pokemon to maybe start dealing through some damage, but just unfortunately due to the Max Rockfall, which again is one of the coolest animations in this game, it's able to pick up quite a clean KO against that opposing Togekiss. We know that all the Togekiss at the minute are running Babiri Berry, and that's not going to help them against a rock type attack, but Sejun sticking here with Togekiss and the Duraldon, whereas Shoma has gone for Bronzong once again, but this time throwing it straight out with Togekiss. So both redirectioners on the field.
Yeah, so obviously the Duraludon with that Solar ability not going to be able to be redirected by that Togekiss. You know, we're not seeing the Dracozolt this turn in the early game for Sejun, so no threat to Shoma's Togekiss, and equally not really too much of a threat to Sejun's Togekiss. So Duraludon really has the pick of what damage it wants to do, and we saw it using that dark move. I'm not sure which one that Sejun has opted for, but it's got a dark move, going to be able to do some damage to that Bronzong. Something that's interesting about Stalwart as an ability is it does go through ally switch as well. So Shoma's going to be able to play those mind games.
Exactly. It looks very much like a Dark Pulse, that move coming out there from the Duraludon. As you can see, the berry on there as well, the Colbur berry on the opposing Bronzong, able to then negate the damage that it would take from those dark type attacks. Yawn once again coming out from Togekiss, this time into the Duraludon on the opposing side of the field as Bronzong sets up Trick Room. And Trick Room really helped Shoma out in the previous game. He was able to kind of drive through the game. You know, the speed was on his side. He declared it, and he made sure that he had the Pokemon like Rhyperior in the right position at the right time to be able to go through this game. And Sejun now needs to be prepared for Rhyperior coming into this game. It
does, and we're probably going to see some switches because just like their trainers, all of the Pokemon in the field are a little bit tired right now, having a little bit of a yawn. So, yeah, going to probably see both Togekiss from Shoma and Duraludon from Sejun switch out here. We're likely to see the Rhyperior come into the field and start putting pressure on Sejun. Going to have to decide what he's going to bring in to do something about that. Might bring in something like the Dracozolt to start putting pressure on. But I don't know, we maybe see that Persimmon come out.
Yeah, it's a double here for Shoma. Rhyperior jumping onto the field, as is Pelipper. Pelipper going to bring the rain onto the field straight away. Not usually a combination that we get to see, and interestingly, Shoma's revealed straight away in just 2 turns all 4 of his Pokemon here. Sejun, however, also going for a switch here, going to be the Dracozolt on the field. As Togekiss hangs around, goes for the Yawn. This time, catches it on the Rhyperior.
Ah, nice. Yeah, that's a really solid move there for Sejun, taking full advantage of Shoma's double switch there. Rhyperior is going to have to now choose if he's going to fall asleep at the end of this turn, have at least one guaranteed sleep turn, and then have to go through all of the normal 1 to 3 turns of sleep there. Especially important as Dracozolt wants to be sitting there, putting out those bolt beaks, doing a lot of damage. So all Dracozolt has to do there is maybe protect 1 turn, wait for the Rhyperior to either not be on the field or to be on the field but asleep before it can start doing damage, and certainly going to be doing a lot of damage to that Pelipper.
Yeah, it's just definitely an intense turn. You can see from the trainers there with the times running down as well. They were taking every second to make their turns. But Rhyperior going to be Dynamax once again. We've seen the power that this can happen. And of course, bringing your Pelipper on the field, if you've got a move that you can self-activate your weakness policy with, this could be the opportunity for Shoma to get those boosts straight away while you're in your Dynamax form from the get-go and start dealing out that really big damage.
Yeah, so quite like this from Shoma, deciding that actually maybe he just wants to remove the Togekiss from play with a max Rockfall, or potentially the Dracozolt from play with a max Quake. We do see the Hurricane coming out here doing quite a bit of damage to the Togekiss. What's the Rhyperior going to be doing?
Oh, Rhyperior has not moved at the moment. It looks like the Octozolt there went into the Dracozolt, targeted down the Pelipper. Unfortunately, I've glitched out just a little bit, so I might be a couple of seconds behind. I will try to fix this. As Pelipper returns to the Pokeball, Rhyperior does take a nap. Now, that's actually quite interesting when you think about it, because it was Yawn the previous turn. Shoma could have had the opportunity to switch it out. Instead, he Dynamaxes it, knowing it was going to fall asleep. So not only are you then kind of obviously letting a Pokemon go to sleep, but you're wasting your own Dynamax turns.
You are, and it's... it looks like a mistake there from Shoma to go down that route. Something that, exactly as you say, you don't want to waste your Dynamax turns, and certainly the first turn of Dynamax, it will be asleep. So unless this Bronzong has got something a little bit tricky up its sleeve, which I doubt it has, that Rhyperior is going to be taking a nap. We saw the Dazzling Gleam coming out there from the Togekiss doing quite a lot of damage to the Rhyperior, even in its Dynamax form. So, Shoma's going to have to either switch out the Rhyperior to preserve it for later, maybe that's something he wants to consider, or he's going to have to let it take a load of damage.
Exactly. Rhyperior is not in the best position here, where it was so strong in game one for Shoma. He's left it a little bit vulnerable here. Bronzong, of course, joining the field, can still deal a lot of tricks. You can go for some ally switch, maybe try and preserve your Rhyperior from taking attacks, but then Bronzong's just going to have to take them in return. And like you said previously, Ben, if you're not dealing out the damage, you're not going to win. Ally switch, though, coming out here, so swapping both these players, even though it's such a big Dynamax Pokemon, Bronzong is sneaky enough to be able to shift them around the field, as Dazzling Gleam does come out again from that opposing Togepiss. Still not going to be dealing too much damage against either of those Pokemon, but the Dracozolt, though, able to, start whittling away at them.
Yeah, nice little Dragon Claw coming out there from Dracozolt into that Bronzong, managing to do quite a bit of damage, actually, so, Sejun's gonna want to be whittling down that Bronzong. He's gonna want to take away the ability for Bronzong to be able to go for the Trick Room in the late game, crucially as well to stop the threat of Ally Switch. So even though Bronzong did manage to Ally Switch into the way of Rhyperior, keeping that Dynamax, Dynamax Rhyperior does have the opportunity to wake up now. He's also Sejun's probably not too worried about that because he's still progressing his game, right? He's still making sure that he can, get to an end game once Trick Room finishes where he has the advantage.
Yeah, he certainly can, and he's now Dynamaxing up as well with that Dracozolt. We've seen him use that previously to great success. So able to maybe start dealing out some big damage, particularly against this Bronzong, just try and remove it from the field before it gets up to any more pesky games. And then Sejun does not have to worry about those ally switch mind games. This is what Bronzong is liking to do at the moment, just keep switching around. But as we've already said previously, it's not dealing that much damage out against the rest of Sejun's team, allowing Sejun to easily stall out these Trick Room turns and also the Dynamax turns. It's going to be, looks like the Max Wormwind there coming out from the Dracozolt, going into that sleeping Rhyperior, going to lower its stats as well, and deal out a good chunk of damage while it is basically completely defenseless.
Yeah, and I like the play from Sejun there to follow me, just in case that Rhyperior did decide to stop taking a nap. Worked out well for Sejun. The Rhyperior didn't wake up, but even if it did, worst case, the Togekiss goes down to a max Rockfall, and at best case, a max Quake goes into the Togekiss. So good play from Sejun there, just covering all of his bases and making sure that max Wormwind hit its mark. It didn't matter if it was the Bronzong or the Rhyperior. The main aim of that, I would imagine, from Sejun is to have that secondary effect and lower the attack stat of Rhyperior and Bronzong for later in the game.
I wonder if you're Shoma right now, once you lose your Rhyperior, I'm not too sure what else he really has to take down Sejun's Dracozolt. We know he's got the Togekiss in the back, which will fall victim to any electric type moves from that opposing Pokemon. And at the same time, Bronzong, Sejun's Pokemon are going to be able to whittle away. You can see here as well, the Max Lightning able to cleanly pick up the KO against it, leaving Shoma with very little answers to it. The electric terrain on the field as well, going to boost up those electric type moves even further in the next turn.
Yeah, so this Togekiss is going to be staring down something that it really, really, really doesn't want to. We may see that by the time the Togekiss is taking damage, if it's carrying something like Protect, that we can that Dracozolt is going to go back into its normal form. That means that Hustle is active again and that it can miss its moves. So, hey, maybe something for Shoma to watch out for, but it does look like Sejun's taking this game, going to be able to finish off with a Max Lightning, probably a Follow Me coming out. As we see what looks like the forfeit button coming from Shoma, he knows that the game is probably over, and doesn't want to waste any more time, just wants to get into that game 3. It's already late. Sometimes taking your time is a good thing, but getting more tired, maybe not such a good tactic at this late time zone.
No, exactly. And I think as well, he knows what he did wrong in that game. The Dynamax was just at the wrong turn. Maybe he forgot the Yawn was on there. It's an easy mistake to be made. But this is the good thing about kind of having that best of 5 situation as well. You're able to just wipe off one game. You can still come back into this. It's one game apiece. So it's not even like this next game is the be end and endable. This is not the game that's going to crown your champion. You still have the potential for 2 or 3 more games in order to find out who our victor is going to be. And I like the adjustments sort of Sejun was making working around that Rhyperior. But again, if Shoma had been able to activate it at the right time, get that weakness policy off, not send it to sleep, I'm not too sure what else Sejun could have done to work around it, because once again, the Rhyperior would have been in such a dominant position.
Well, it would have been, and we saw it pretty much take Mike's sleep turns, and so that's not going to be the same in every game, but something that you do hope for, and Sejun took the most advantage of. But of course, he played it safe. He didn't allow that Rhyperior to really sort of go off on one, so to speak. He did still play conservative. He played as if the Rhyperior was going to wake up, and hey, he got the benefit of it not waking up. So just that really leads to such a commanding win, where maybe it could have been closer if the Rhyperior did. Something I really want to see a little bit more of. That Bronzong from Shoma's side is causing so many problems with Sejun, and while Shoma is my pick for the tournament, I'd really like to see Sejun come out with a better way to deal with it. We don't know what moves he's got on maybe that Persimmon. We know we've seen knockoff. We don't know if it's got something like Flare Blitz on his Galarian Darmanitan, which could do a great deal of damage and we know it's not heat proof. We've seen Levitate activating next to that Rhyperior. So I'd quite like to see an adjustment here for Sejun going into game 3.
Well, a slight adjustment has occurred. There's no Togekiss jumping out on the field, but it looks like Sejun's gone back to his leads that he had in game 1, the Duraldon and the Dracozolt, whereas Shoma has just gone straight out with the strategy. Here's Rhyperior, here's Bronzong. What are you going to do about it, Sejun?
Yeah, here's my threat. Here's my other threat. So yeah, we're going to see some mind games. We've got obviously the Ally Switch plays that can come out. We've got Protect and Trick Room maybe. It might be that Shoma decides to just Dynamax the Rhyperior and say, hey, look, you can't KO me with a double up here, so I'm just going to attack. So really interesting turn 1. What I'd quite like to see is that Sejun really does double into that Bronzong with a Bolt Beak, with a Dark Pulse, and really get that momentum going for him.
Yeah, exactly. You could even see the Rhyperior just going for a straight-up Earthquake in this situation. You know that the Bronzong's got the Levitate, so it's not going to be affected by it. But I like this from Sejun, going straight for the Dynamax Duraldon here. Like you said, could easily go for one of his bigger moves, trying to whittle away at both these Pokemon. You could go for the Max Darkness, for example, onto that Bronzong. But instead, Rhyperior is just going to protect. Might as well not use any of its Dynamax turns if it doesn't have to, while Trick Room is not up in play. The Max Steel Spike going through still does some damage through that Protect, though. You can just see the power of this Duraldon. And of course, it's going to get its boost as well on its defense. That's going to help it out. But critically, Weakness Policy has been activated. If this Bronzong is going for Trick Room, Rhyperior is going to be sitting so pretty on this field for Shoma.
Yeah, so just remains to see what happens as Bronzong does go for the Trick Room, and you can see Sejun's reaction there. He is not happy about activating the Weakness Policy. Looks like a electric move from Dracozolt went into the Rhyperior that turn. So, wow. You could not have planned this turn better for Shoma. He has the ability to just go for that Earthquake. He's now at 2+ attack. Even if both of his opposing Pokemon are at 1+ defense from the Max Steel Spike, probably going to be enough to pick up the KO here. Of course, he could go for a Dynamax here, just ensure that Rhyperior stays on the field, and does go for a Max Quake and does the most damage it could. But just wow. Commanding start here from Shoma.
Yeah, Dynamaxing is happening. The heavy and it's being thrown out. We're going to get that giant Rhyperior here on the field, and we know that it's ready to deal out so much damage. Both of the Pokemon on Sejun sides are not going to appreciate any Max Quake coming out from this Pokemon, particularly as when it goes for the Max Quake, it's going to get its special defense boosted up. That's something that's going to help it out against that Duraldon. You can see some damage being taken here by both of the opposing Pokemon on Sejun side.
Yeah, so we see that Body Press doing a little bit of damage to Duraludon, maybe trying to chip it into range of Max Quake. Looks like it's coming out there. Is it going to be into the Duraludon? Yes, it is, and it made the KO there. So Shoma definitely not wasting his Dynamax turns.
Yeah, absolutely critical there. The poor Duraldon going to go up in flames here, return back to its small size and shoot right back into its Pokeball. That just shows exactly the damage you can deal if you have weakness policy up. The Dracozolt there, getting a critical hit, really trying to help out Sejun here, but it's not enough to stop that Rhyperior, and particularly in the next turn, that Dracozolt knows it could easily be the target of another Max Quake.
Yeah, so, wow. So, whenever you're in these kinds of positions, you have to be really wary of what your opponent's going to do. How do you make the most advantage? And of course, the Duraludon being in its Dynamax form could have just gone for a Max Guard that turn. A little bit of damage could have come off from the Dracozolt onto Rhyperior, and we'd have had a completely different game here. So, yeah, really good advantage taken by Shoma, and I think now we're in a position with Togekiss on the field where Shoma can just hit the Max Rock button, and actually, Sejun, he knows that the game is over, and wow, yeah, what a quick game 3.
Yeah, phenomenal there. Shoma just managed to get himself into the position he needed to be. Sejun knew that. And I think we're now at we've had 3 games. This is the standard situation that we're in from VGC players. So we're going to give them that short little break to just rest, relax, take in some hydration. I recommend all you players do that at home as well. You can never be without some hydration. And then we'll be jumping into the later stages of this best of 5 situation. Shoma's 2 games to 1. He just needs to win 1 more game in order to take that title. So this is where now things really start to heat up, particularly if you're Sejun. You know you've got to work around that Rhyperior. He doesn't seem to have too many answers for it, and he seems to have every answer to activate the weakness policy.
He does, and I really do think that Sejun did the right thing there. There's a lot of times where games are so one-sided as that, where it just completely gets run away with, and Shoma definitely ran away with that game. But if you look at the decision that Sejun made, I don't think he made the wrong one. With that sort of situation, if the Bolt Beak and Max Steel Spike went into the Bronzong there, they both connected. If the Bronzong was able to be KO'd, maybe it looks like Rhyperior would have gotten an Earthquake off either way. Obviously protected, so wouldn't have done any damage, but let's say that he did. That's the worst case for Sejun. And that Bronzong goes down. Well, that's a totally different game, and we talk about people running away with a game. It would have been Sejun that was running away with that game. So a really sharp turn 1 that just led all the way to a win for Shoma, and just in this case.
Exactly. It's really showing kind of when you're looking a little bit at sort of Shoma's team there, and you're looking at that composition with the Rhyperior. It's something we've said a lot in this format as well. It's new, it's still exciting, people are still figuring things out, and if you're not prepared for something, it's going to roll through your team. And the thing about Rhyperior is not only does it have devastating Dynamax moves when it's in that form, even when it's come back to its level, the synergy that Shoma's got on his team, he's got Pelipper, Togekiss, and Bronzong. They're all in the air. Rhyperior can Earthquake for days, deal out some huge damage. Alternatively, he can go for Rock Slide. That still attacks both of the opposing Pokemon. So if you're not able to stop Rhyperior and or Trick Room, you're going to really be on the back foot against this team, and you're going to have to play defensively. You're going to have to work around this team, and that's something that Sejun's having to do, and I can't see how he's going to get around that Rhyperior without a little bit of kind of maybe bold plays with that high risk, high reward.
Well, the trouble is you can deal with or try to lead to deal with that Rhyperior and Bronzong as much as you. But hey, Shoma could come out with the rain mode, completely blow away everything that you're planning, and play a totally different game. So maybe it's just hard for Sejun to decide on what to lead up against. And going into a game 3, Shoma in every game has led that Bronzong. If there was a time to switch it up, that time is now. Does Sejun call it? Does he call that the Bronzong's just going to come out? It's done so well for Shoma the whole of this set. And so, why fix something that ain't broke, hey?
No, exactly.
but equally, he could still decide to switch it up. You just don't know. So Sejun now he's at the point where if he loses one more game, he's going to lose this final. Everything's to play for, and everything's to play for Shoma. He's got 2 chances to win the game.
Exactly, and both these players working really heavily into the night at the moment in their time frames. So huge kudos to them at the moment. They really are going to have to fight through every little bit of adrenaline they've got left to get through into this game. Shoma, like you said, you could really switch it up, go for that Pelipper Ludicolo mode. He brought the Pelipper in one of his other games, but I don't think we really saw it utilized in any way. It brought the rain, it did one hurricane, and then promptly got kind of booted back into its Pokeball.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if maybe Shoma does want to go for that strategy, like you've said. At the end of the day, he can afford to take a risk. He's one game up.
And this is it. You know, these high risk, high reward plays are where it's at. And when you're a game ahead, you can exactly as you say do that. I'd like to see the rain mode coming out. I'd like to see him give it a shot and see how it works.
Well, it's going to be Duraldon and Dracozolt there on Sejun's side, whereas Shoma has gone for the same core he went last time, the Bronzong and the Rhyperior. So I think, although you can shake it up, stick with what you know is good. Like you said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Rhyperior and Bronzong here have been such a strong call for him. How do you think Sejun can play around this to not make the same mistakes he made last time?
Well, there's an argument about doing exactly the same thing that you did before. You know, it's so hard. It's a coin flip. In so many ways, I think what Sejun has to do is just take the play that's the least likely to go completely wrong for you, and that's a hard thing to work out. It's a hard thing to calculate, but I do think doing probably the same thing that he did last turn is the way forward.
Well, Sejun going straight for the Dynamax again. This is the Duraldon. Oh, yeah, it is indeed. It's going to be the Duraldon here. We've seen how much damage the Pokemon can give up, and we know that it has the bulk capacity. It needs to somehow, though, be able to pick up some KOs, maybe get some critical hits for that extra damage that in the long term of this game will be able to make him the victor. Rhyperior going for the Protect again, though. If this Duraldon has again gone for a Max Steel Spike, it's going to be activating that weakness policy, and it does. It targets the exact same Pokemon. No Switch Mind Games.
Oh, you can see Sejun's face. Oh, what's happening?
Oh, that's so unfortunate for Sejun. But great for Shoma. He's got that weakness loyalty boost right up again. And Bronzong looks to be sitting pretty to go for another Trick Room here.
Yeah. Wow. So it looks like it's just frozen here.
Oh!
The Bolt Beat coming out. Does it get the KO? Yes, it does! Yes! Shoma managed to stop the Trick Room going up. He's got that defense boost. He's got the chip damage from that Max Steel Spike. Wow, so it's going to be a different game here.
Oh, there were so many emotions going through that. So much that my screen was freezing. It couldn't handle it. But yes, Sejun getting the weakness policy up on Shoma's Rhyperior did look to be a little bit devastating. It looked like the same cards were being played out, but Shoma lost his Bronzong to that devastating electric type attack, meaning that Trick Room is not up. Now, Rhyperior, it is still a formidable opponent, but Sejun doesn't have to worry about A, Ally Switch, or B, Rhyperior outspeeding in Trick Room. If he's got the way to take it down, he needs to do that now.
Yeah, so we've seen Togekiss before, not going to do anything, as we know that Stalwart ability is really going to put things on the front foot, or put Sejun on the front foot for the rest of the game. We see Dragapult coming out and making a first appearance for Shoma, not the Pelipper in the back this time. So a little bit of an adjustment there. Probably going to be under, or he's going to be under quite a lot of pressure. That Rhyperior is just protected, so even if it tries to max guard, there's a good chance that it's going to fail. So that Duraludon's got the pick of the litter here. And we'll see if the Dracozolt has enough juice in the tank to take maybe a Dragon move from that Dragapult and reply back with a Dragon move of its own.
That's the thing. Shoma still has not Dynamaxed as of yet, so he could easily Dynamax up this Dragapult, knowing that it's going to be in a better position due to the speed of the field at the moment than that Rhyperior is to utilize all of that extra boost. In fact, Rhyperior actually leaves the field, sacrifices the boost that it got, and has brought in Togepiss, which I think is wise from Shoma. He needs to protect the Pokemon that is going to be more offensive on the field at the moment, able to utilize that speed. He Dynamaxes it up as well. There we are, the big Dragon Cannon on the field, flexing itself out, and able to apply a lot of pressure with his Dragon-type moves against that opposing Duraldon. And that's the Pokemon that at the minute Shoma needs to take down.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he goes for something like a Max Phantasm. Max Guard comes out from Duraludon, so we'll see Max Phantasm coming straight down into that Dracozolt, but not picking up the KO there, hanging on with a sliver.
Yeah, the Dracozolt able to cling on, going to be able to fire off a move this particular turn. It looks like the Max Guard there went off on the opposing Duraludon.
Yeah, maybe something...
It must
probably an Earthquake there coming out.
Yeah, quite potentially. So we could see that they hit all the opponents there. Of course, Togekiss up in the air isn't going to be affected by anything going on the ground. It can quake away as long as Togekiss is there. But you can see it did deal a little bit of damage there to the opposing Dragapult. But still, Dragapult's in that offensive pressure position where it can deal out some big damage. Even if the Dracozolt now protects, any move that comes out that's going to be Dynamax is going to be able to break through the protect and pick up the KO there.
Yeah, and that Max Phantom's doing a lot of work there, dropping the defensive Duraludon, making sure that the Dragapult is able to do as much damage as it can. Of course, you know, Togekiss is still susceptible to that Bolt Beat coming out from Dracozolt, so Sejun's still sort of in a commanding position here where, you know, he's got to protect, Shoma's got to protect his Pokemon.
Exactly. Switching it up, though, there's a little Whimsicott on the field as the Max Phantasm comes out for the third time here. This time going into that Duraludon does a little bit of damage, but it's still above 50%. This Duraludon is really hanging on, able to sort of show its sort of versatility here to Sejun. As it will retaliate itself here with, it looks like a Max Wormwind there. Yeah,
so Max Wormwind coming into the Dragapult and picking up the KO. So really good turn there for Sejun. It looks like this game is going towards a 2-2. Hopefully we'll see a final game in this best of as the Dragapult goes back into its form, normal form, and back to its trainer. Togekiss just finishing off the turn with a Dazzling Gleam.
Yeah, Dazzling Gleam only going to chip away at both of these Pokemon as Shoma is forced to bring back in that Rhyperior. Again, even if you've got that Togekiss redirecting things around, that's not going to affect that Duraludon at all. It will just bypass thanks to its ability. So it's able to still threaten that Rhyperior with any Steel-type move. And of course, Rhyperior's lost its massive attack stat now.
Yeah, it has had to switch out that weakness policy boost that it got in way back in turn 1 here. We're going to have to see if the Togekiss can be taken down by Sejun here. Obviously, the Flash Cannon will be able to go straight into that Rhyperior there, but you know, you've also got the threat of Energy Ball coming out from Whimsicott on Sejun's side of the field, so it's how he decides to really remove that Togekiss threat from the field, I think. You know, he does have a lot of tools in the bank left to deal with that Rhyperior. So I think that's the real threat here, and Sejun's just going to make sure that he can do as much as he can while all of his Pokemon are on the field.
Yeah, a few defensive plays here. The Rhyperior going on the defensive as a Moonblast comes out from that opposing Whimsicott. Going to go into that Togekiss. If it also gets a special attack drop, that could be critical for the damage output that Togekiss is able to do. Not, though, able to go straight for that Dazzling Gleam. Still chipping away at these Pokemon, though, not picking up any KOs. So although it looks like Shoma does have kind of the healthier Pokemon, let's say, they are slower.
Yeah, they are, and Sejun wisely protecting at the same turn that the Rhyperior on Shoma's side of the field protects, so just making sure he didn't accidentally go into a protect on Shoma's side of the field and maintains his HP so that he's able to fire off another Flash Cannon, which is looks like is a Moonblast coming out from Whimsicott into that and follow up with a Flash Cannon.
Yeah, the double up there, really smart. Cheeky critical hit for style points there. But out of the two Pokemon, Rhyperior really is the big heavy hitter. So you need to take advantage of the fact that you're faster, exactly what Sejun did, and picked up the KO there. But Togekiss able to fire back a double KO of its own.
Yeah, that Dazzling Gleam doing a lot of work there. And Shoma may have decided that that was a trade that he was willing to take. So I think that's... is it Togekiss is his last Pokemon versus the Dracozolt?
No, there's two Togepiss on the field, and then there's also the Dracovolt there for Sejun.
Yes, so, yeah, not the best of positions for Shoma to be in. But maybe on the off chance that the Dracozolt misses a move here, could be a chance for Shoma to get back into the game And that hustle, not something that you want to really risk if you can avoid it.
No, exactly. Hustle could be the downfall here for Sejun, but he does still have his Togekiss as well at full HP. And if you're going to have sort of a Togekiss versus Togekiss, Shoma's is going to come off slightly worse. It's already taken about a third of damage. Of course, as well, if they're going for things like Dazzling Gleam at this stage, Sejun's will be only hitting a single target, whereas the damage on Shoma's one is going to be split between the two. The Life Orb recoil on the Draco Bolt, though, is enough to pick up the KO. But again, the Togekiss on Shoma's side has already been heavily damaged.
Yeah, we see Dazzling Gleam coming out for Sejun's Togekiss, and of course a Dazzling Gleam coming out from Shoma's Togekiss, so they're just going to be exchanging Dazzling Gleams, but it looked like Sejun's went first. So unless it's a speed tie, which it certainly could be, it's likely that Sejun's going to finish off this game with a win.
Yeah, exactly. Bringing it then into this sort of Game 5 scenario here in the finals of this World Champion of Champions. We whittle it down here to Shoma and Sejun. They've both done tremendously well throughout this tournament so far. And I love that in this best of 5 situation, that's actually what we've got. We're going to a Game 5. And Sejun has been able to play around that strategy that Shoma has really championed so far. Rhyperior and Bronzong have been excellent for him. There was the one game where he was a little bit unfortunate with the Yawn turn. But then in this game, although he didn't get the direction with, he got the weakness policy up, he was able to pick up the KO against that opposing Bronzong, therefore still kind of weakening the Rhyperior. Even if you can't weaken his statistics or pick up a KO, you make it useless in a way. You make it sort of vulnerable.
Yeah, and I do really like the thought process there, right? So what Sejun learned from Game 3 was that Trick Room is the threat, right?
Yes.
If we're not in Trick Room, it's not going to be so much of a problem. He has a way to win, and that's exactly what we saw in this Game 4. And so when you look at the way that he targeted there, you have a situation where Bolt Beat goes into the Bronzong. If the Bronzong doesn't do anything, it gets hit with Bolt Beat. If the Bronzong does go for Ally Switch, yeah, okay, you don't hit it, but Trick Room doesn't go up.
That's true.
So, yeah, okay, maybe the Earthquake comes out, a Max Steel Spike goes into Bronzong, does a bit of damage, and you've got to try and play the turn again, and maybe you see an Earthquake come out, not likely to take a KO on either Duraludon or Dracozolt in that turn. So I really like the way that Sejun targeted to take what is exactly what we were talking about before the game started, right? The ability to take a situation and make the least bad thing happen.
Yeah, exactly. You have to kind of look where your out is and try and manipulate the ball position to be in that kind of favorable position for you. I think as well, even if the Rhyperior had just gone straight up for an Earthquake in that situation, thanks to the fact that the Duraludon would have been Dynamax, it would have easily been able to take that, and then you're kind of back in the same situation. Again, of course, 2 Earthquakes, that's a whole different situation. But if you're then, still taking damage in that situation, you're then weakening your Rhyperior for if and when you get Trick Room up, and may not be able to utilize the turns as effectively. But here we are. It is the grand final of the World Championship. And there is a change. Sejun is going for the Duraludon and the Galarian Darmanitan, whereas Shoma has got Togekiss and the Dracopult. So really shaking it up here for Sejun. He's coming out saying, hey, I'm going to win this.
Yeah, and winning it is what he looks like he's doing. He's definitely on the front foot in this turn, really putting a lot of pressure with the Galarian Darmanitan onto that Togekiss and onto the Dragapult with the Duraludon. Getting my tongue tied here at the final game. We've been saying these moves, these Pokemon over and over again for the whole afternoon. But yeah, so a brilliant lead there from Sejun, really putting the pressure on. And Shoma's going to have to adapt. Maybe we'll see that rain mode come out from him. Maybe we'll see another double switch. We've seen he's not afraid to do so.
Yes.
And we'll see if he has got this rain mode in the back.
As well, at this stage in the competition, you have a lot of information on your opponent, particularly in a best-of-5 situation, but we have nothing on the Darmanitan in this game. So at the very last stage of the competition, Sejun is bringing in an unknown to the game, and that's something Shoma has to watch out for. Shoma, however, gonna Dynamax right up. It's gonna be that Dragapult, gonna deal out some big of the Max Phantasms that we've seen previously, and of course keep the speed advantage on its side. It also might help it take some moves from this opposing Darmanitan, depending on what item it's on it. Sometimes we see a Choice Scarf on there thanks to its ability, you know, allowing it to be both powerful and speedy.
Yeah, but we see the Dynamax coming out from Sejun as well, and neither player wasting any time to get that offensive pressure onto the field. And it's the Duraludon again, surprise, surprise. We're seeing it go for yet another Dynamax. So coming out, raising its HP, and probably going to see some max Wormwinds coming out there.
Well, Icicle Crash coming out here from the Darmanitan, potentially thinking an Ally Switch was coming up there. Instead, it's gone on to the Bronzong, leaving the Dragapult free to go for a Max Phantasm into that opposing Darmanitan. It looks... Oh, was that into that Darmanitan?
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. Oh, sorry, the graphic threw me off there. I'm too excited. But picks up a clean KO. It doesn't have to worry about those Ice-type moves anymore, as a Wormwind comes out from the opposing Duraludon, fires back into it. There's just offensive moves coming left, right, and centre at the moment. But Dragapult is able to hang on.
Yeah, so, both players going straight for the Dynamax, both players going on the offensive turn one. Shoma getting the better end of that, managing to take that Max Wormwound like an absolute champ, getting that defense drop onto the Duraludon there, bringing in the Bronzong, so now he's in a position where maybe he can sacrifice the Dragapult to get Rhyperior in. And actually, what I'd quite like to see would be quite a bold play is for Shoma to bring that Dragapult back in for the Rhyperior, set up the Trick Room, and get the board state right on his side straight away.
Yeah, exactly. If he's got that Rhyperior in the back and gets Trick Room up, he's going to be in such a strong position. Yes, he won't be able to Dynamax the Rhyperior, but as long as you're in Trick Room and you can get your Wings policy activated, you're still looking really strong. And I think making sure that he's got the offensive pressure on that Dragapult, as you can see him going for here, that Max Phantasm dealing huge damage has definitely been the right play. Ultimately, with the Dragapult, you just need those 3 moves and you can pick up almost 3 KOs here. You can deal the damage that's needed.
Yeah, you can, certainly, and lots of damage there, taking real advantage of that Max Phantasm, as we see the Max Steel Spike just raising Duraludon's defense back up to normal.
Yeah, exactly. Duraludon once again going into the Bronzong here, whereas it could potentially have been going into the Dragapult instead. But wisely there from Sejun, goes for Flamethrower into the same slot, able to pick up the KO there, so kind of covering his bases in a way. You know, if he stayed in that position, the Flamethrower was going to pick up the KO in a nice little pick there on the Togekiss as well. Or if the Ally Switch came off, that Max Steel Spike would have picked up the KO against the Dragapult.
Yeah, so Sejun really wants to take this game, and we were talking earlier about whether he was able to deal with that Bronzong better, maybe all the way back in Game 2, and this is it. He's kept that bit of information secret, hasn't revealed it until now. Game 5, this is the game that matters. This is the only game that matters, and you have to make sure you win. And revealing that information right at the end, taking a KO on a Pokemon that has been so crucial for Shoma to be using to create the best board state that he can, now KO'd. And it's going to be tough for Shoma to come back now and get himself into the right state.
Exactly, the Bronzong not being able to get Trick Room off that first turn as well really puts him on the back foot here. If you've got that Rhyperior hanging out in the back. So it kind of stops him getting that endgame strategy that he needs and that he's used so well, not just in endgame strategy, but just as a big core throughout this particular game. The Dragapult here ready for its 3rd and final Dynamax move, going to be able to deal out some strong damage once again. And you can see as well with Shoma, he's been taking his time with every single move as well. He's really going down to those last couple of seconds, because this is the last game to win this championship title here of being the ultimate world champion. Yeah,
it is. So, you know, we'll see what happens here as Dragapult goes for a Max Guard.
Yep, just protecting itself here in this particular occasion, whereas the Max Steel Spike comes out from the Duraludon. Gonna go straight into that Rhyperior and pick up such a clean KO.
Oh my god.
Oh, I feel like there was a lot of revenge coming up here from that Duraludon. really trying to avenge the players or the Pokemon that have fallen before it to that Rhyperior. And Sejun just able to get that ultimate big KO.
Yes, so Shoma obviously predicting that, there was going to be some shenanigans. Maybe the Dragapult was going to be targeted, and he didn't want to lose that turn. It's already done so much work for him, but actually just left a gap there for Sejun to take advantage of. Maybe didn't expect the Max Steel Spike to pick up the one-hit KO on his Rhyperior, but that's what happened, especially after the last couple of games where Shoma has protected it. Sejun deciding to switch it up at the same time that Shoma decided to switch it up and just keep targeting into that Rhyperior and getting the KO so big. The Trick Room mode on Shoma's side of the field now gone. He's down to his last Pokemon. We're going to have to see if he's able to clinch out the game.
Yeah, going for a Protect here on the Duraldon. Potentially that Togekiss could be going for something like a Dazzling Gleam. But the Dragapult deciding to just hide out for this particular game, going for that Phantom Ball. So you can see it's only on 19 hit points. The Dazzling Gleam would have picked up the KO against it. Togekiss on Shoma's side, very happy to take that Dazzling Gleam and go, hey, I can do it too. Fire right back and just take that little bit of chip. But both of the kind of more offensive Pokemon on their sides have played a little bit defensively this turn. But of course, that Dragapult is going to be able to go for the second half of its attack in this turn.
Yeah, and it's going to be forced to, right? So Dragapult has to finish off its Phantom Force, and that really allows Sejun to take a KO on it this turn, not able to protect itself, and maybe able to pick up the KO on the Duraludon on Sejun's side of the field. If he wants to let that happen, which he does, we'll see the KO happen here. It does leave Togekiss on Sejun's side free to just launch that Dazzling Gleam off.
Oh, I forgot about the Dazzling Gleam. I just got very excited. The light bulb left it on one hit point. Why do that? But the one thing it does at least allow is that Dazzling Gleam to have not been a single target. So it just will sort of help share the load a little bit on Shoma's Togekiss's damage as well. However, it's able to fire off another Dazzling Gleam, does get the critical hit, but Whimsicott joining the field here for Sejun. And once again, you see the Togekiss on Shoma's side having to face down against two Pokemon, and I don't think it has the utility to be able to do this.
No, I don't think it's quite got enough gas in the tank here, and Whimsicott's going to start off by firing that Moonblast, maybe getting a special attack drop along the way, but Dazzling Gleam, a follow-up, does pick up the KO, so here you have it. Sejun Park, the 2014 World Champion, is your 2019 just about champion of champions in this World Champion Invitational.
Exactly, a lot of the word champion in that, but it's true. He is the World Champion for 2014. He has battled it out against the other 7 World Champions that we have for the Pokemon video game, and he has emerged victorious in this absolute showdown. He's battled it out through all the pool stages. I believe he was the #1 seed coming in into these last couple of knockout stages, and he lost game 1 here in this best of 5, and it looked so difficult for him to come back into this game against that Rhyperior, but he was able to work around it, brought in that little shocker of a Darmanitan at the end as well, and has just been able to prove that he is the best of the very best.
He certainly is, and I think a lot of people were definitely looking forward to seeing what Sejun was going to run. I mean, even back in the day, we talked about the Pachirisu earlier. He does use Pokemon that are a little bit non-standard. He likes to play a volatile game, but he's very good at that. So we've seen him come back from a 2-1 deficit. He was really under the cosh there. If he lost one of those 2 games, he was going to lose in this finals, but he managed to hold his cool, hold his nerve, make sure he targeted the right things, and I really do think he did very well on his targeting throughout the last couple of games, just managing to clinch the win and come out as your victor.
Yeah, he did phenomenally well. And looking at the team that he had as well, he had some quirky Pokemon that we just haven't seen so far when you're playing on Battle Spot necessarily, or we've looked at kind of the way the metagame is forming up. There were some really big surprises in there. The Persimmon, the Dracozolt as well. Like I said, Dracovish has been the Pokemon that we've talked about so much. But to be able to have that electric type on there as well gave him great versatility against Pokemon like Togekiss that we saw a lot of. So being able to have that electric type attack to fire down at it has been great. And also all the dragon types, the dragon type moves for all the dragon types that we see, it just really kind of showcased it as a Pokemon. And I think we're going to see a rise in that Pokemon going forward.